Hi, this is Emerald and welcome to the Diamond Net, and today I'm going to be talking to you about synchronicity and law of attraction. Alright, so today's video is all about synchronicity and law of attraction, which are both ways to conceptualize of the link between the internal world of the psyche and the external world. So both synchronicity and law of attraction operate off of the axiom, as within, so without. And it's also called the law of correspondence, meaning that there's going to be a correspondence between the internal and the external. Now, I've found both of these perspectives to be incredibly helpful in my inner work practice and also just in life in general. And so I wanted to share a bit about both of these perspectives, some similarities, some differences. But first, I wanted to mention a little bit first about different perspectives that can be taken and to avoid certain pitfalls that come along with these perspectives. Now, there are two different paradigms through which we can conceptualize of these phenomena. We can look at it through the lens of, let's say, the materialist paradigm, and let's say the law of attraction and synchronicity being more of a practical phenomenon. So what we have is we have what's called a reticular activating system in the brain, and the reticular activating system tunes itself into things that we're focused on. So it's the idea that if you're thinking about a yellow car, you'll start noticing yellow cars come up in your reality. And so what might appear as synchronicity, or what might appear as law of attraction and things coming into your reality and you're manifesting, it could be just that your mind is more attuned to them. And ultimately, it's the things we focus on and the things that are in the subconscious that the reticular activating system is going to attune itself to. Now, on the other hand, we have the more metaphysical perspective, which actually conceptualizes of a psychic link between the internal reality and the external reality. So the idea that whenever we are noticing synchronicities or whenever we're manifesting things through law of attraction, that reality itself is actually acting as a mirror to the internal world. And it conceptualizes of a fundamental link between the self and the external. So there's no real distinction between internal and external on that level. And so we can think of this law of correspondence, which may manifest as synchronicity or manifestations from law of attraction, in either one of those paradigms. And I think both are equally helpful, because ultimately it all is going to link back to the subconscious. And a huge thing with both of these perspectives is getting more in touch with what's going on in the unconscious mind. It's best to be a fence sitter in this way. So to not decide one way or another if, let's say, this is a more materialist kind of paradigm sort of thing, or if it's a more metaphysical paradigm kind of thing. Ultimately, you want to keep your cup empty of what you believe about these phenomenon, because that way you can look from both perspectives and you can get the benefit of looking from those perspectives. So if we get stuck in the idea that it's purely metaphysical, we're going to miss certain practical elements that are valuable. Or if we get stuck in the paradigm that it's purely practical, we will lose some of the perspective that comes from the metaphysical side of things, which actually gives a more expansive point of view. So basically, from both of these perspectives, we can say both are possibilities that we as human beings fundamentally can't possibly tell from our epistemological blind spot what actually is or isn't true in this sense. And to be able to just open up that perspective just so we can look from every possible angle. And on a similar note, you want to make sure that you're holding on to these perspectives very loosely. So these are kind of lenses that you can put up to reality to be able to get certain insights or experience certain things. But you don't want to get jammed into either one of those perspectives. I find that when people get really into synchronicity or really into law of attraction, they can fall into certain traps with it, where they start over-policing themselves because they're afraid they're going to manifest something in their reality, or just becoming ungrounded because they're noticing all these synchronicities up here and they're not really rooting themselves back in other perspectives. And so you want to hold on to both of these paradigms very loosely, use them as tools, but don't overuse them. So now that my caveats are out of the way about synchronicity and law of attraction and tuning into the law of correspondence in general, let me go over some basic definitions. All right, so first let's talk a little bit about synchronicity. So synchronicity was a term that was coined by Carl Jung, and he posited a psychic link between the internal world of the psyche and the external reality. And so what this means is that whatever is showing up in our life again and again, or without causal reason, can be an emanation of what's going on in the unconscious. And it has to be for no causal reason. So you can't have something that makes sense that this thing would show up again and again. So for example, if you keep seeing cats everywhere, which could be a synchronicity in other contexts, but you're in a place with there just being a lot of cats, that doesn't count as a synchronicity because there's a causal factor there. So the idea is that synchronicity comes from non-causal factors, things that are just beyond the probability of pure coincidence, that keep showing up in your reality again and again, or if you have a dream and those elements of the dream start showing up in your reality. So for example, if you're going about your business and you keep seeing bears everywhere, and it's not in a situation where you would expect to see bears everywhere, then that can be a synchronicity. The bear could be an archetypal symbol of some kind that's meant to reflect something that's going on in the unconscious. And the idea with synchronicity is that these are kind of road signs along the spiritual path, which can be kind of a nebulous thing. So as we're doing our inner work, it's kind of invisible. But synchronicities kind of show up as a wink and a nod to show us that we're on the right path, that we're on the right track, and to also provide us with insights that are tied to those, let's say, symbols that tend to pop up in synchronicity. Now, as I had mentioned before, law of attraction is similar to synchronicity in that they're both operating off of the law of correspondence. Again, as within, so without. But law of attraction is a little bit different. It's a little bit more active. The idea with law of attraction is that if you change things in your internal world, and if you change things in the psyche and with regard to your emotions in your psyche, what will happen is that the external world will change to mirror that. So for example, if we have something that's going on, a certain thought pattern that's manifesting negative things in our life, if we change that thought pattern, we will manifest something else, something new, something better. And so basically, if somebody is trying to manifest abundance, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get their thoughts right relative to abundance, to get into that feeling state of abundance, so that abundance is mirrored to them externally. So law of attraction is more used in an active sense, a sense like, oh, I want these things in my life. Let me change what's going on internally to manifest those things externally. So again, still having that same link between the external reality and the internal reality, still operating off of the same law of correspondence that synchronicity does, but synchronicity is operating more in a yin kind of receptive way, where it's like, oh, I'm noticing this that I'm not specifically trying to manifest, versus like, here's the other perspective that, oh, I'm trying to deliberately manifest something into my life. And both of these are very, very helpful, but very different perspectives on the same phenomenon. So they operate off of the law of correspondence, but one is more passive and more about attuning to the situation that is, and the other is more active and about building up a new situation. All right, so I want to share with you some helpful ways to orient to the phenomenon of synchronicity and to law of attraction. So I'll start with synchronicity first. And so basically the way I like to think about this is you want to think about yourself as traveling through a labyrinth, and you're trying to get to the center of the labyrinth, and you don't fundamentally know which direction to go in. And so there's no clear point A to point B there. There's a sense of you're not quite sure where you're going to have to go to actually get to the center. And as you go through that labyrinth, what you're experiencing is little signposts that pop up here and there that help you to find your direction. And so it's sort of like attuning to the external world and the potential synchronicities and symbols that pop up there to use as road signs along your path. So it's very much a surrendering kind of perspective. It's saying like, okay, I don't know exactly which direction to go in. Let me attune to something outside of myself and use that to get that element of spontaneity, that element of diverging from the usual point A to point B that we would typically kind of be sort of orienting to life through. Because as human beings, we can end up, being creatures of habit. And so synchronicities give you an ability to sort of change up some of those patterns, to attune to something outside of yourself so that you can change things up a bit. So that's what I find to be the most helpful way to look at synchronicities. So let's say, again, from the example that I brought up earlier, if you start seeing bears everywhere, You can start to look up what the symbol of the bear generally means in a more collective sense. And you can see, oh, what about that applies to my life right now? And kind of get, is there any kind of hint as to what the next move should be? So let's say if I take the example that I came up with earlier of bears keep showing up, what I can do is I can learn about what that symbol might mean collectively, and I can start to think about, things from that perspective. I can start thinking, like, if bears have to do with, let's say, if I'm thinking bears, I'm thinking maternal instinct and protection, and if I'm seeing bears pop up everywhere, maybe it has something to do with that element of myself. Does it have something to do with the way that I'm parenting? Does it have something to do with maybe being overprotective? Like, what are these bears trying to symbolize to me about myself? And in that way, I can get kind of a mirror perspective, through that law of correspondence when I see these synchronicities, and to see that it's maybe holding up a mirror to myself, certain things that I need to work through. And so in that way, I can utilize these symbols to kind of get to the center of the labyrinth if I can kind of figure out what those symbols are meant to mean for me particularly. So that's one way to look at synchronicity, and that tends to be the way that I sort of operate through synchronicity. Now, on the other hand, we have law of attraction. So law of attraction, basically, most of the time when I've encountered people in my life who are interested in law of attraction, it's the idea of you create a vision board, you have an idea about what it is that you want to create in your life. So basically it's like, oh, I want, this much money, or I want this kind of job, or I want this kind of relationship. And basically it's like trying to get to those outcomes. Now, one of the things that I will say is that I don't tend to use law of attraction this way. What I do is I try to use law of attraction in a more emotional way. So, and this is the reason why I do this, because ultimately emotions are the things that fundamentally motivate us. So let's say that I want $1 million. Well, the reality is that it's not actually the $1 million that I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is the emotions that I think will be on the other side of that, or to get away from certain emotions. So for example, if let's say I want $1 million and I'm imagining myself going on shopping sprees and buying cars and all this, there's this element of excitement and this sense of empowerment. And so what I'm actually looking for from the $1 million is the empowerment and the excitement. I'm looking for those feeling states because those feeling states feel good to me. Or we could be motivated to wanting the $1 million to get away from some kind of emotional state. So sort of more like negative motivation. So if, for example, I'm always feeling like a sense of scarcity and lack, and this makes me feel really, really anxious, what I could be wanting the $1 million for is to get away from that sense of anxiety. So not so much going toward excitement or toward empowerment, but getting away from that anxious feeling. Now, one of the things that I will say about the perspective of law of attraction is that law of attraction doesn't tend to work in the negative. So if you say, I want not that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to manifest the opposite. What it means is that you're still wrapped up in that emotion. So basically, if I say, I don't want anxiety, according to the law of attraction, it might tend to manifest more anxiety. So if I say I want $1 million and it's coming from the root of let me get away from anxiety, wanting $1 million will actually bring you more into the perspective of anxiety because you're resisting against anxiety. So what you want to do is you want to frame it in terms of the positive emotions you do want to experience, not to get away from the negative emotions you don't want to experience. So if I look at this and I am anxious, and I want $1 million because I'm anxious, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let go of the anxiety and I'm going to let go of the $1 million, and I'm going to say, I want to manifest peace. I want to manifest calm. I want to manifest stability. So basically all of these things are framing that in a more positive emotional sense. And that way you sort of open yourself up to being able to receive whatever situation that creates that sense of calm and security and stability that you're looking for. So basically, with that, not being too focused on the vehicle, but being focused on the destination, which is the emotion. And then also making sure that you frame your destination in a positive sense. So you're trying to get to happiness, you're trying to get to fulfillment, you're trying to get excitement. You're not trying to get away from something else. You're not going toward not that, you're going toward this. So basically, being able to frame your emotional desires in a positive framework, and that way you're more open to receiving from the universe the things in your life that you really want to experience. And so the way that I personally practice this is, let's say at nighttime, when I'm thinking about what it is that I really want to manifest in my life, I try to throw out the things that I think that I want. And I try to really get in tune with those emotions that I'm really looking for, those emotional states that are most motivating to me. And then I basically put it out to the universe, bring to me whatever is going to bring me a sense of peace, or bring to me whatever is going to bring me a sense of fulfillment. And I kind of, in a more yin sense, kind of leave it up to the universe to bring that to me in whichever way that it will. And I just trust that the universe will bring me to whatever experience, positive or negative, that's going to help me most to get to the destination that I'm actually seeking. So thinking about it as being a journey to experiencing those internal states and those emotions can be a very helpful way to take some of the, and temper out some of the yang element of law of attraction and to bring it more into that yin space of receiving. Anyway, so that's all I have for you for now. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead, click the like button below and subscribe, and go ahead and leave me a comment down below. Also, I wanted to announce open enrollment for my shadow work group class. Basically, my group class is a small group of people. We get together. I teach about shadow work for an hour and a half a week for a 13-week span of time. And basically, it's for anybody who really wants to create their own shadow work practice independently. And so I give you everything that you need to be able to create a shadow work practice. And we also go through the assignments that are in the course as well as we go through the class. And enrollment is now open, and it'll be open until December 17th, so you have some time to make the decision as to whether or not you want to take the course. But basically, the class meets on Thursdays starting December 30th. And basically, it'll be 2 class times. So there's an 11:30 a.m. class or a 7 p.m. class, and that's Eastern time. And you can choose either class section to be in, whichever one works best for your schedule. And yeah, basically, if you're interested, I'll go ahead and I'll leave the link down below in the description in the comments section. Anyway, that's all I have for you for now. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and until next time, keep becoming more you.